Hello! We are getting ready to make our hand studies on a piece of toned paper. The first step is just to tone the paper. You can start with a piece of white paper, but rub a piece of chalk pastel all over the paper to give a nice even tone. This color will serve as a medium value on your value scale, and you'll be adding in darker and lighter values to it as you draw. Next, grab something with your hand, because we want to draw the hand holding something. In the early stages of the drawing, just focus on shapes. You don't need to think about details yet, or even about the light and dark values. Just try to see the big shapes. Look at the relationship of each finger to the object that you're holding, and get the approximate proportions correct, just as you did back when you were drawing your face. There isn't a specific set of rules for how to draw a hand, since everyone's hand is going to be a little bit different, and since the shape of the hand varies a little bit once you grab something. But use your eyes and use your practice, because all of you have been doing observational drawing for a couple weeks now. Once you've got the main shapes down, take your pencil and start identifying where you see darker values in the scene. One thing I'd like to point out right now is that while you can see both my hand and my drawing of my hand, the perspective you have is a little bit different from mine, so you may notice that some things look a little bit different in my hand versus my drawing of my hand. Just keep in mind that my computer is going to, or my camera is going to have a little bit different perspective than my eyes are. All right, once you've mapped out the main shapes of light and dark, you can start thinking about where some of those core shadows are. Remember, this is a little bit like when we drew the egg. When we drew the egg, we were looking at all these different types of shadows. The darkest shadows, the core shadows, the transition area where the form turned toward the light. And then on the lit side, there's often a highlight which might be very, very bright. All of those areas of light and shadow will be in this video on the apple and on the hand, just as they were on the egg. What you may find more challenging, though, is that this is a far more complex subject than the egg. If you start getting overwhelmed, one trick is to break the large design down into smaller parts. Look at one part, one finger, one part of the hand, perhaps the palm, and just think about where you see light and shadow in that area. You can keep building up layers of light and shadow as you go on, and each successive layer will make the image a little bit richer. Now, at some point you may want to take a piece of rolled up paper or one of the tortillas in the class and use it to rub things in. This can make it easier to get a smooth transition from light to dark, especially if you are using a slightly textured paper, as I am here, and you need a little bit of help just rubbing the values in. At some point, you may realize that you need to put some lighter values in. Remember, the toned color on the paper is our medium value. So for the lighter values, you'll need to either use an eraser to pull out those areas, as I am here, or take a piece of white chalk and add them in. I also like to sometimes take the colored pastel and add it into some of the other medium tones, just to add a little bit of additional richness to them. In the case of the apple, it also feels nice because we all know apples are red, and so adding a little bit of that additional red in gives it a little feeling of warmth. But that's unnecessary. You don't have to do that unless you like to. Really, the important thing is to think of the red as the medium value, the white of the chalk as the lighter values, and the black of the charcoal for the very darkest values. Once you get toward the end, it's okay to spend a little more time on details. At this point, all of the values and proportion are established, so you can afford to think about tiny things like a fingernail or the glimmer on the skin of the apple. For some of us, these might be some of the most fun parts of the drawing.